And we are off to Traverse City. There's Heather steering. You can see the water go flying by.
Finally, after all of those projects, it was time for Phillip and I to take Bombadil out and really, and I mean really, stretch her legs. Most of our top-of-the-list projects were completed. We had 9 days off and just under 500 nautical miles to sail.
We are right by Port Sheldon, going 3.6 knots. The sea state has calmed down quite a bit. Heather's eating a snack, some tomatoes. So here's our update. It's just after 1. We are just south of, probably halfway between Port Sheldon and Grand Haven. Was a knot of current against us the whole time, so every time we go out to go north again, we drift back south. So all's well. I just took a nap and Heather was steering, so I'm gonna relieve her and she'll probably take a nap for a little bit.
Good morning, everybody. We haven't even made it to Muskegon yet, so that's delightful. I'm just floating very slowly. That is the brightest pink sun I have ever seen, but it is beautiful out here. So we just finally turned the motor off. Philip's here steering, and you can see he's got all his gear on because wouldn't be a trip up north without a little thunderstorm. That's gonna be great. Definitely was not in the forecast, so we'll see how that goes. I think we've mostly outrun the worst part of it, but Hard Dodger is working fantastically. I'm staying nice and dry. Yeah. Oh, and we almost ran over a couple of fishing boats, so that was great, but oh well.
Forward progress has halted. We are just floating now, waiting for the wind shift.
Wind is back. We're sailing again. It's just a little frustrating. Can't hardly see it, but there's Silver Lake.
So we didn't quite make it to Traverse City. We were both really tired. So about 5 this morning, we pulled into Portage Lake for a few hours of sleep. We're hoping to probably take off in an hour, and it's gonna take probably most of today. So probably Monday we'll see you guys.
Bye, Onekema.
North to Alaska. The gold rush is on. This on.
Okay.
We found Sleeping Bear Dunes and another thunderstorm, and right there is South Manitou Island.
After leaving Omena Bay, we sailed north, obviously, and had really one of the better days of sailing for our entire trip. We were out for about probably 2 hours, and then we found ourselves completely engulfed by a fleet of more than 200 sailboats participating in a race from Chicago, Illinois, up around to Mackinac Island. It was beautiful. We spent most of the day jibing downwind in about 10 to 15 knots with all of those 200 sailboats on one side and 200-foot sand dune cliffs on the other. We entered the Manitou Straits right around the time the sun started to set, and that was things got really amazing. I wish our cameras could have picked it up, but we had the most amazing light show between this absolutely beautiful sunset, and then as the sun went down, the Milky Way came out and we had hundreds of shooting stars that we could see. We were totally surrounded by hundreds of navigation lights from all of those sailboats, and then just out of earshot, a thunderstorm with all of its lightning was completely lighting up the southern sky behind us. It was really one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life.
Alright, so I think you can kind of see it. There's Manitou. There's the other Manitou. This beautiful sunset. And then over there's mainland Michigan, Lower Peninsula. And that's where I've been sleeping. But
We might not be in salt water. Because of the norm today, we're still salty sailors.
we are still salty sailors. Sweat my butt off.
Really early on Sunday morning, the wind just absolutely died out, so we rolled up the headsail and very slowly motored around the end of the Leelanau Peninsula. Then we tucked into Northport Harbor for a couple of hours of sleep.
This is the especially fun part about cruising on Lake Michigan. To get this whole boat's covered in it. Spiders had a great night though. They're loving it. We have an official hitchhiker. Cute little guy showed up sometime last night. We're just gonna let him be.
approximately here is where we anchored for a few hours that morning to catch a couple hours of sleep, and then we packed everything up, went around the corner to meet Katie and Kevin in Omena Bay.
Alrighty. Philip just jibed the main, and we got the little generator running up front, which has worked amazing. We had to use a bunch of battery motoring last night because the wind dropped down to basically nothing. So now we're gonna go anchor in this little bay up here and see if we can find Katie and maybe Kevin. Would be great. So slowly cruising along.
So this boat came with an old Danforth, and you can see actually down right there is our road going out that way. Danforth is over yonder somewhere, but because a Danforth has a hard time resetting, we like to try to keep that rope as low as possible. So the trick that Philip and I will do is that guy right there. Just helps keep that a little bit lower. So if for some reason we swing, which on a night like tonight we're not going to be doing much swinging, we're probably going to barely move all night. There's not supposed to be any wind, but that will help to keep that Danforth down in the water and prevent it from not wanting to reset. So it's kind of a fun little thing to do, and it's really cool that you can actually see it. We spent the rest of that day and that evening hanging out in Omena Bay. Philip's sister Katie and her husband Kevin stopped over for a little bit and had some drinks with us on the boat. We just kind of enjoyed ourselves and then spent the night here. In the morning then we packed everything up and started our cruise on down the Traverse City Bay to see if we could get all the way to the Duncan Clinch Marina for the night.
We are sailing down the west bay of Grand Traverse, and it's beautiful. We're doing about 4.5 knots.
It was a pretty slow sail down the bay, and we did have to motor for part of it, but we did make it all the way down to the Duncan Clinch Marina. There we hung out with Katie and Kevin for a little bit, and then we found my family over at the state park where they were camping.
There they are. That's them. They're gonna come in. Murphy and I are gonna wait for them by their slip. Here they come.
And now Philip and I have both been to Traverse City many times, so we didn't feel like there was a huge need or desire for either of us to spend a good portion of the day in Traverse City. So we ended up leaving the next morning, between 8 and 9 a.m. We did commandeer Katie and take her with us. We had an absolute blast, even though it poured. The wind kept switching directions. It was just kind of a crazy sail back up the bay to Northport.
Man, that is not easy.
Yep.
Okay.
Is it tight the whole way?
It was tight-ish. I mean, it's about as good as that sail gets, right?
Yep.
All right, ready for the main?
Not yet. Oh, we need a motor on.
Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
After dropping the hook in Northport, we took the dinghy into town for dinner with Katie and Kevin. The food at the Northport Pub and Grill was absolutely delicious. We spent all day Thursday in town with Katie, and that night a big weather system moved through with quite a bit of lightning and thunder. We had gone up to Northport to kind of set ourselves up for our departure back home, and we had thought about setting out for South Manitou on Thursday evening. Instead, we rested and we left early Friday morning.
All the way.
Alright, there's slack.
Not that anyone needed it, but here's proof that Phillip will work on projects anywhere. There's Northport and another sailboat coming out to anchor with us.
So we are anchored in Northport, which is right in front. And there's a sailing school going on right now, and there's a whole bunch of little opties that are kind of fun to watch. But it's a cute little town in northern Michigan. We're waiting out some thunderstorms that are coming tonight, and then we'll take off and head back to Holland.
Alright, well, really sad, but we're getting ready to leave Northport. Phillip is hoisting up part of the anchor right now, getting it as close as he can, and then we're going to take off, and then we'll make breakfast and coffee and stuff along the way. So it's going to be a really light morning, and then once we get around the little point up there, wind's supposed to fill in behind us, and it should be just a quick run down the coast with like 15 to 20 knots behind us. And we're thinking about stopping in Onekema, maybe Frankfurt if we need to stop earlier, otherwise we'll keep going. So I'm gonna go help Phillip.
We just weighed anchor and we're sailing out. There's the point that we have to go around to get out of the Northport Bay area. There's a few knots of wind. We're doing 3 knots. We're anchored by all these other boats right over here. Beautiful morning. We're hoping the storms hold off for the rest of the day. So we are just south of the Manitous, and there's no wind, so we've got a generator going so we can motor. But I mean, the water is just like glassy. Little ripples here. There's the Manitou Islands. The water is there's just light reflecting off of it. There's no ripples from any wind at all. So.
Making the last of our run into Frankfurt. It's been a trip out here today, so little stove is doing his thing. It's all creaky today. See you guys later.
Just dropped anchor in Frankfurt. There's not a very big harbor. Lots of boats anchored. There's the boat launch. So, yeah, I mean, there's the other side of the harbor. It's pretty tiny. We left Frankfurt. It's a little rolly. We're making decent time down the coast. It's a pretty day other than a little bit of the waves. So Frankfurt's back there, kind of by that sand dune. So I think next port of call we're hoping is Whitehall. The wind died for a while today and we kind of bobbed. We're just south of Ludington, or on par with Ludington. I think we're headed to Pentwater, unless the weather looks favorable and Heather can get a good night of rest and take over for a while. Otherwise we'll anchor up in Ludington and then continue on and see how far we get tomorrow, and might need to find a ride for Heather to work tomorrow.
After leaving Frankfort Saturday morning, we sailed south with haste. Philip had a few extra days off if we needed it, but I had to be back home and to work on Monday morning. We ended up making it to Pentwater, and we slept there Saturday night into Sunday morning, leaving us with only one day to make it back. Previously, we had made the trip from Pentwater to Holland in 21 and 13 hours. The wind was forecasted to be pretty light, so we put our big kid pants on and hoisted the spinnaker for the first time. Tell me when.
Keep going. Yep.
Right there? Woo! I think I'm gonna pass out. This is the most terrifying thing I've done in a long time.
Alright, actually want to let that one out a little bit.
Just kidding. Not done yet. Let it out.
Nope, and then we'll crank it on the other side.
How far am I letting it out?
That will work.
Okay. And then cranking in on this side?
Yep, just a little bit.
Okay. Tell me when.
Yep.
Okay, good. That was utterly terrifying. I can't see shit. How fast are we going?
6.6.
How much?
6.6.
6.6?
Yeah, we were up to 7.1.
7.1.
So since we deployed the spinnaker, we've been seeing 6 knots, which should put us into Holland around, I think it's like 7, 8 o'clock tonight. Before that it was saying like 3 in the morning, so seems worth it. Heather winding up the extension cord but trying to get all the circles out. It's kind of funny. She keeps spinning all these circles.
All right, well, we pulled the spinnaker down. We've got a double reef in the main and just a little bit of the head sail out, and we're still doing, I don't know if you can see that. About 6 knots. We're hoofing along. We took the spinnaker down because the wind went up, and then you probably can't see him way over there. There he is. What's it called? The Algoma Mariner. We were getting run down by him, so we decided to slow down. Correction, that was the American Mariner. So.
Just finished tying up the lines and we're back in Holland, Michigan. So just putting out the screens for keep the bugs out. I think we're gonna go get Captain Sunday now.